This is worthy of day drinking, don't you think? Hello and welcome to another video. My name is Heather and as always I'm reading with a vengeance and I hope you are as well. Welcome back to all you OGs, and if you're new to my channel, a very warm welcome to you. I hope everybody is doing very well. What do we have here? So we have Rekorderlig, which is the premium Swedish hard cider, pear flavor. I picked this off the shelf because this is what I drank when we were in Norway in the fall. Not this brand, but pear hard cider. Oh my gosh, probably the best cider I've ever had. Best hard cider. Naturally gluten-free and vegan friendly. It's delicious. Okay, I said I wasn't going to do a reaction video to the Women's Prize for Fiction Longlist, and I'm not going to do that. However, full disclosure, so I recorded this yesterday, and I did it with the live announcement of the long list, and I wasn't doing it so much as a reaction because I just feel like, and this is no shade on any of the other booktubers who've done reaction videos, but I just feel like you guys don't really care what my reaction is per se, like not a live reaction, but I felt like I wanted to kind of record and share the moment with you guys as it was being announced, and so I tried to do that recording yesterday, and then I discussed the books afterwards. It turned out that the lighting was bad and the sound was even worse, and then I just felt all out of sorts because I felt rushed because I wanted to do it right at the time of the announcement, and it just didn't work out. I didn't feel good about it all the way around, and so I decided to re-record. I feel like more relaxed now. I just want to talk about the books with you guys. This is my first recording. Yesterday's doesn't count. In my new house. So I'm kind of got this temporary setup. I'm in like a little alcove. What would you call a mud room, a place where you hang up your coats in between the garage and the rest of the house. And I have my laundry room right here. And I kind of set it up as cozy as possible, but this isn't going to be my regular recording area. I have a full room that's going to be completely dedicated to books and Booktube. We don't have our stuff yet, so that's another reason I haven't done any kind of vlog as far as touring the house or anything. We have no furniture other than a bed. If you hear an echo, that's why. Not only do we not have any furniture, there's nothing on the walls, so I apologize for any echo that you might hear on the sound. The other problem that I had with yesterday's recording is I completely forgot to make my announcement that I had teasered in my last video. I have a huge, exciting announcement when it comes to the Women's Prize for Fiction. I'm going to put it at the end of this video, and I realize that you can fast forward to listen to the announcement, but that's how I want to kind of close out this video, is to give you my big, fantastic, amazing news. As you know, I didn't do a predictions video. There's lots of those videos out there, and there's just lots of people who are just better at that kind of thing. I didn't feel I had the literary chops to come up with predictions. I probably could have come up with a wish list, but again, my reading is all over the place. You know, I read a lot of women writers, but I don't think enough. But just a couple that I was surprised didn't show up on the long list. Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. It's so talked about. I was really surprised. I haven't read that yet. It's on my TBR. One that I did read last year that I would have liked to have seen on the long list, and that's Fight Night by, is it Miriam Taves? I'll put it up here. Loved that book. Would have loved to have seen that on the long list. I was really surprised we didn't see Lessons in Chemistry. Bonnie, I can't remember the last name. I haven't read it yet. It's on my TBR. I was really surprised that that was not on the long list. That has gotten a lot of talk over the past year. A Sea of Tranquility by Emily Mandel St. John. Super surprised that didn't show up. To be fair, I'm not exactly up to speed on the criteria. If there's like a date cutoff, I think there is, but I'm not sure. So if any of these don't fall in the criteria, then that could be the reasons they didn't show up, but I'm not sure. I'm just kind of talking books with you guys. All My Rage, I thought might have shown up. And finally, Our Missing Hearts by Celeste Ng. Spoiler alert, I'm actually currently reading that right now. Redundant much? I'm currently listening to it. I'm reading it for the Booktube prize, so I can't give you any inkling as to how I feel about it. But just based on how much it's talked about, I was surprised it didn't make the long list. What is clear about this long list, it is definitely not a popularity contest. What I noticed about this long list is that there are a lot of books on here that just haven't been seen by a lot of people. Not just by me. There are a lot of books on here that I have never heard of the author, but that's not saying much. However, if you go on Goodreads, which is a very widely used platform, you can see that by the amount of ratings are on these books, it's on the radar of relatively few people. And I'll talk about that as I talk about each book. Last year was when I started following it for realsies, and I had a great time. I did a video, it was mostly a celebrating women video, but in that video I talked about all the books that have been longlisted, shortlisted, and winners that I have read. Not a huge number, but I talk about those books, and I talk about how there are some that I really, really enjoyed that made it onto the Women's Prize for Fiction list, and then there's some that I did not care for that made it on the Women's Prize. So I'll link that video down below if you have any interest in that. So without further blather for me, let's talk about these books. And then after I discuss each of them individually, I will go over the ones that I personally am interested in no particular order. The first one we have is Cursed Bread by Sophie McIntosh. This book is only 304 pages. The author is from South Wales. This book only has 137 ratings on Goodreads. As you may or may not know, Goodreads, you can rate it, with the stars, and then you can review it, write out an actual written review. There's obviously a lot more people that do ratings than actual write out a review, so I'm just talking about the ratings. So Goodreads users who have read these books. Only 137 ratings, that's tiny. Cursed Bread is historical fiction, takes place in 1951, and it covers the real mass poisoning of a French village. And it follows Elodie, who is the town's baker's wife, who gets involved with a couple that's new to town, and stuff goes down. This is a new to me author. As you'll see, most of these authors are new to me. So that one sounds interesting. Next up is Children of Paradise by Camilla Grudova. She is a Canadian author, new to me. This book's only 200 pages, and it's only got 341 ratings on Goodreads. This is a historical fiction / horror, so that alone intrigues me. This follows Holly and her time employed at the really mysterious cinema called Paradise. It's the city's oldest cinema, and the story goes into her relationship with some of the weird, oddball employees that she shares her time with at Paradise. Next up, we have The Marriage Portrait by Maggie O'Farrell. This one is a lot more well-known. Maggie O'Farrell's been around. Her Hamnet won the 2020 Women's Prize for Fiction. The Marriage Portrait was a Goodreads Choice nominee for historical fiction last year. 50,000 plus ratings. So that kind of gives you an idea of what books are fairly well known and what books aren't. I have yet to read Maggie O'Farrell. I did not jump on that Hamnet bandwagon. I'm not a fan of Shakespeare. I understand people have said that you don't have to be, but I don't know. It just doesn't appeal to me. And I'm not sure if I'll read this one. I feel like it would lean in the favorites. I feel like this is one that will make the short list. This is historical fiction following a Duchess, Lucrezia de Medici, in 1550 Florence, Italy. And it talks about her entry into a troubled court. So we'll see about that one. Next up is Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver. If you watched my video on the books that I have been assigned to read for the first round of the Booktube Prize, this is one of those ones. I am still in the judging time frame for the Booktube Prize, so I can't talk about this one. I can't even tell you if I liked it. This has gotten a lot of talk over the past few months, so I'm not surprised to see it on the long list. This is a big one. This one's 546 pages. I do not have a good track record with Kingsolver, as I've mentioned, but she won the Women's Prize for Fiction in 2010 for Lacuna. Demon Copperhead was a nominee for fiction for the Goodreads Choice Awards last year. Demon Copperhead has 65,000 ratings. So this one's been around. It's been making the rounds on Booktube. People are talking about this one. So I won't go too deeply into the synopsis. Most people know this is a David Copperfield retelling. It's a contemporary retelling, and you're following Demon Copperhead. That's his nickname. It's from his point of view as he grows up in the Appalachian Mountains of Virginia. He is raised in poverty, single mother. surrounded by drugs and crime, and he goes through the foster care system. Yeah, that's all I can really tell you until I submit my ratings for the Booktube prize. I can't really give you any indication on whether or not I liked it. Let's move on. Okay, next up is Trespasses by Louise Kennedy. This one's 304 pages. Louise Kennedy is from Northern Ireland. I have not read Louise Kennedy. This one's gotten a little bit more talk. This was also nominated for the Booktube prize. It's not in my assigned list, but I actually nominated this one. This one sounds really interesting to me. This one's got 7,000 ratings on Goodreads. It's historical fiction, and it follows Kushla in Northern Ireland. It's a story about her involvement with a man who's associated with the IRA. I think some violence happens, and her story goes from there. I am definitely intrigued by this one. Next up is Pod by Laylene Paul. This is a new to me author. This one is only 272 pages. Laylene Paul is an English author. This book only has 131 ratings on Goodreads, so not a lot of talk going on about this book, and I certainly hadn't heard of it. This is a fantasy-ish, or like speculative fiction. I'm not really sure. You be the judge. It is basically a story of family and finding your place in the world and the struggle for belonging, but it's all from the point of view of a spinner dolphin in the ocean. And so I think there's a lot of talk about climate change, and not directly, but the dolphin's experience in the ocean and how certain species are disappearing, that kind of thing. I am super intrigued by this book, and I love seeing stuff like this on these lists. Next up is The Bandit Queens by Parini Shroff. This one I'm super excited about. I mentioned this one in my new releases that I'm excited about, I believe for January. And I am kicking myself because about a week ago I was in the library and I saw it on the shelf, and I was so tempted to pick it up, but I didn't want to get distracted from my TBR that I set myself as much as I want to read it. And then I went out this morning to try to grab it. It's gone. So I'm completely kicking myself. But anyways, I'm happy to see it on this list. This one's got about 5,000 ratings on Goodreads. This is a debut novel, which is super impressive. See, this is a mystery thriller. It's the only mystery thriller on this list, so you know I'm intrigued. This follows Geeta in a village in India. Her husband disappeared 5 years ago, and the people in her village think that Geeta had something to do with it, even though she didn't. But her reputation is starting to be such that other women in the village who have no good husbands are starting to come to Geeta and ask her help in getting rid of their husbands. So it sounds like a hoot. I'm really excited to read this. I'm going to keep my eye out, see if it gets returned to the library, because I definitely want to read this book. I've been wanting to read it since I did that video for January. Cocktail break. Next up is Homesick by Jennifer Croft. So this one's interesting, and I'll tell you why in just a second. Jennifer Croft is an American author. This book is only 256 pages. It's only got 601 ratings on Goodreads. I found this was interesting because per Goodreads, it's got the genres listed as autobiography, memoir, biography, and then it also says that the original title was Homesick, a memoir. And as you know, this is the prize for fiction. So I'm really interested to know what happened here, because it also shows an original publication date of 2019. And I'm wondering if she originally published it as a memoir and then decided to go the fiction route and went in and kind of made some changes and made it into a fiction novel. I'm very intrigued by this. What we have is a coming of age novel, and it follows sisters Amy and Zoe in Oklahoma. They are young girls who have been homeschooled. Zoe suffers from debilitating seizures, and she leads a life just filled with endless doctor's appointments. And then Amy, she flourishes intellectually, and she goes off on this other arc. I think it just kind of talks about their relationship and how life is just so different for them. This one made me think of Sorrow and Bliss from last year. Next up is The Dog of the North by Elizabeth Mackenzie. This is 336 pages. Elizabeth Mackenzie is another American author. Only 42 ratings on Goodreads. The Dog of the North is contemporary fiction, and you're following Penny, who goes on a road trip after her marriage and her job comes to an end. Her mother and her stepdad go missing in the outback of Australia. Her dad is mentally unstable. Her grandmother, who's a doctor, is being investigated for reasons unknown to Penny. And she decides to go on this road trip for a fresh start, and she's going with two brothers. I think they're eccentric brothers. And I believe a dog is on this trip, which of course, as you know, that intrigues me. Next up is Memphis by Tara M. Stringfellow. I read this for the Booktube prize, and I can't tell you whether I liked it or not. This one's only 252 pages. Tara Stringfellow is another American author. This one's been getting a lot more talk than some of these other ones. She's got 20,000 ratings for this book on Goodreads. This is a debut novel. Again, very impressive. This was nominated for historical fiction for the Goodreads Choice Awards. This follows 3 generations of Black women in Memphis, Tennessee, and you're really dealing with generational trauma and relationships between mothers and daughters and sisters. And that's all I can really say. I really can't wait to talk about these Booktube prize books. Next up is Stone Blind by Natalie Haynes. Natalie Haynes is an author from England. This has gotten a lot of talk. I think mythological retellings is a popular genre these days. Stone Blind is 373 pages. It's got 8,000 ratings on Goodreads. It's, like I said, historical fiction, a mythological retelling that kind of shines a new light on Medusa's story. I'm not sure if I'm going to go there. The one mythological retelling I've read is Madeline Miller's The Song of Achilles, also a former Women's Prize for Fiction winner. I loved it. It was one of my favorites of 2021. I have Circe on my TBR, but I just haven't gotten to it yet. It doesn't draw me in, that whole mythological retelling trope, genre, whatever. So I'm not sure about this one. Next up is Fire Rush by Jacqueline Crooks. Jacqueline Crooks is a Jamaican-born Brit. This book is 352 pages, only got 55 ratings on Goodreads. This is historical fiction, and it takes place in a Jamaican community in London, and you're following Yamaye, who is a young party girl, lives for the weekend, living her life, and then she meets Moose, who shares her Jamaican background. They start to fall in love, and then some violent unrest comes into their community, pitting the government against their community, and we follow her story from there. Next, we have Wandering Souls by Cecile Penn. Now, I didn't do a deep dive or anything, but I couldn't find very much about Cecile Penn. I don't know where she's from. I believe I remember reading that she was raised in New York and Paris, so I think she moved around a bit. Wandering Souls is 240 pages. It's only got 247 ratings on Goodreads, and this is a debut novel. That puts stars in my eyes, as you know. This is historical fiction, and you're following 3 siblings from Vietnam. They suddenly become orphans, and they end up being refugees in England, and it follows their lives. I think it's a girl and 2 boys, and the girl is the oldest, and she ends up taking care of her 2 younger brothers. They lead very, very different lives. They're each dealing with guilt because of what happened to the rest of their family, and that guilt affects them differently. And then, of course, it also affects the relationship they have with each other. So very, very intriguing. Next up is Black Butterflies by Priscilla Morris. This one only has 124 ratings on Goodreads, and I think as of yesterday, it was only available on Kindle. Priscilla Morris is a UK author. I'm not sure. I'm guessing this is a debut novel. Like I said, really difficult to find some things out. Black Butterflies is historical fiction. You're following Zora in 1992 Sarajevo. So you know there's going to be war involved, some violence involved. It's like Zora is an artist and a teacher, and when war breaks out, she sends her elderly parents, her husband, and her daughter to England to be safe because she thinks this is going to blow over. But I think she gets caught up in the war, and the story goes from there. As always, I'm intrigued by historical fiction that takes place in countries that just aren't written enough about. Next up is I'm a Fan by Sheena Patel. Sheena Patel is a UK author. This book is only 207 pages. It's only got 832 ratings on Goodreads. This is a debut novel, and it's literary fiction. You're following a single woman, I believe, and she narrates the story. I think she remains nameless, but it's her view of the relationship that she's having and how it's affected by social media, the patriarchy, our cultural obsession with status, things like that. I think it's big on social commentary. And if I remember correctly, this one ended up on several prediction lists. Finally, we have Glory by No Violet Bulawayo. This one has gotten quite a bit of talk. I feel like I'm not sure. I'll put down below if I'm wrong, but I think this was also nominated for the Booktube prize. This one's 416 pages. It's got about 2,700 ratings. And this is a satirical literary fiction. You're following the fall of a fictional African country through the eyes of the animal kingdom. It's supposed to parallel a real fall by coup of Zimbabwean President Robert Mugabe in 2017. Okay, so those are the 16 books on the Women's Prize for Fiction long list. Here are the ones that I am interested in. So, of course, I read Memphis, and of course, I read Demon Copperhead. The Dog of the North, I'm super intrigued by. I think it takes place in Australia, which is a tick for me. And then, of course, there's a dog in it that is a semi-main character. Fire Rush intrigues me because of this love story and political unrest in a Jamaican community in London. Homesick intrigues me because of the sister relationship that I always find so engaging. Pod, because everything is from the point of view of a dolphin. I'm super intrigued by that. I think that's going to be right up my street. Trespasses has already been on my radar because of the Booktube prize. And finally, the Bandit Queens, which has been on my radar since right before it was published in January. The rest of them are going to be maybes, and it's going to be just depend on their availability to me and how long they are. Now, fortunately, the longest book on this list is Demon Copperhead, and I've already read that one, so I feel a sense of accomplishment there. The next longest one is Glory with 416 pages. The rest of them, 6 of them are less than 300 pages, and then the rest of them are between 300 and 373 pages. So they're all really accessible in terms of page count. So out of the 16, I've read 2 of them, and then there's an additional 6 that I'm very, very interested in. And if I finish those 6 before the shortlist is announced, I want to say April 26th, I will try to squeeze in some other ones. Maybe Cursed Bread, maybe Wandering Souls. I'll have to play it by ear. So that is it. That's the long list. Which books were you surprised by? Were there any books that you wanted to make the long list that did make the long list? Which ones do you think were snubbed? Were there any surprises? Please tell me, what did you guys think? I'd love to hear your thoughts, or you can just say hi down in the doodly-doo. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. Oh my gosh, I almost did it again. My announcement. Oh my God. Okay, this announcement doesn't really have anything to do with my channel, but I have to share with you. Okay. So I follow the Women's Prize for Fiction website. I get their newsletter. I got an email saying early bird tickets for the live show in June are on sale to our newsletter members, or the festival, I should say. It's Women's Prize for Fiction Festival. And like authors are going to be there. It's from 12 to 9. There's a goodie bag or anything. And I just got to thinking, like, wouldn't that be fun? I wonder how expensive it is. And I looked online, and it really wasn't that expensive for tickets, especially the early bird tickets. And then I thought, well, how expensive are flights and how expensive are hotels? Anyways, there's more to it. Hold on. I had a couple of days before tickets went on sale for everybody. So I was mulling it over, and I ran it by my husband. And then my husband and I were talking about concerts. You know, my husband's a huge concert goer. We started talking about, well, who's going to be playing in Savannah? And so I started looking up. And then, of course, I wonder if Harry Styles is still on tour right now and if he's going to be coming to Savannah anytime soon. So I looked at Harry Styles' schedule, and I saw he is in London the same week as the Women's Prize for Fiction Festival. It was a sign, you guys. I bought tickets to the Women's Prize Festival. I bought tickets to Harry Styles. I'm going to be able to see him at Wembley Stadium. I'm going to London. I'm going to see Harry Styles, and I'm going to meet a bunch of authors, to include Elif Shafak, which I'm super excited is going to be there. And the winner of the Women's Prize for Fiction is going to be there as well, among other authors. I'll talk more about this in future videos, but that's my announcement. I'm going to London to the Women's Prize Festival, and I'm going to see Harry Styles the same week. Oh my gosh. My English Booktube friends, I would love to meet up. I'm throwing that out there right now. You have till June to decide. Meet me for tea. Meet me at a Waterstones. I don't care, but I would love to meet some of my Booktube friends who are in England. If you're going to the Women's Prize for Fiction Festival and you're watching this, send me a message. I would love to know. But anyways, that's my big announcement, and I'm super excited about it, and I wanted to share that with you. Okay, so now I could sign off. All right. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.